Hey guys, Eric Brody here. I'm going to give you a brief overview of Native Instruments Kontakt. Native Instruments Kontakt has established itself as one of the most popular samplers on the market today. It is an incredibly deep and capable program, and this overview will really just scratch the surface of its potential. To begin, Kontakt can function as a standalone software or within any digital audio workstation, including machine and the complete control software. Kontakt 5 full version comes packaged with Complete 11 and powers tons of Native Instruments titles. A couple of my favorites include The Gentleman, Scarby, Vintage Keys, and Organs. Right here I have a project loaded up with a few of my favorite patches too, including some of the ones that come with the Kontakt player for free. This right here is vintage, and I got a DX7 style keys. Love those. This is just a harp. Really simple. That's all it is. This one is called Synth. Comes free with Kontakt player. And a really good high quality sounding synth right here. The next I got is a pad from Synth as well. Across the Pacific pad. I use it all the time. The macros map out to machine and complete control really seamlessly and nicely. This one is Scarby's Vintage Keys. Vintage key selection comes with Complete 11 Ultimate. This is an organ, Scarby Vintage Organs. Some of my favorite organs found in computer music production software. This is the Grandeur, one of a few really awesome Native Instruments pianos that come with Complete 11. And they're probably my favorite piano software VSTs. This is a third-party VST called Block, and I'll get into what the capabilities of third-party companies designing Kontakt-based instruments are in a second, but I'll just show you a couple examples that I really like right now. Central Sax. Exhale. Macros map out to my machine controller. And Signal. Both Exhale and Signal are from a company called Output. Okay, moving forward, there are truly tons of third-party software developers that sell Kontakt-based instruments. Output is one of the most popular. They create some incredibly detailed and deep instruments based on Kontakt Sampler, Exhale, Signal, and one of their most recent releases, Analog Strings. Native Instruments and companies like Output utilize the NKS format. NKS stands for Native Control Standard. NKS is Native Instruments' extended plugin format for all virtual instrument developers, and NKS allows for intuitive and seamless interaction between plugin instruments and the complete control and machine platforms. The Kontakt Player is actually a free application that hosts all of Native Instruments' Kontakt-based instruments, and the free player comes bundled with 50 diverse instruments, including a couple that I just showed you, although it is limited as compared to the full Kontakt Player, which is sold with the Kontakt library. The free Kontakt Player does not allow for use of third-party instruments, such as this one right here. It also does not have access to the script editor, which I'll get into in a second, which really allows you to go more in depth behind the scenes of Kontakt. This is what it looks like behind the scenes of a Kontakt instrument. It looks the same for even the ones that come from the Kontakt Player for free. And the script editor looks something like this. That's how the company themselves actually build these. The free Kontakt Player also restricts access to the wave editor, which is very useful for looping, slicing, and editing samples, especially when loading your own samples in and treating it like your own personal sampler. Okay, Kontakt offers a fully customizable patch directory, and once Kontakt instruments are installed properly, it's easy to access them either on your own hard drive or an external hard drive. Once installed, Kontakt products will appear in your Kontakt library, found here, all your products. and your machine library directory. So if you go over to the native instruments directory over here and I look for instruments, I'll see some Kontakt instruments pop up, including the giant vintage organs. The complete control library directory also has something very similar to what you're looking at right here. And from these locations, programs are easily accessible and taggable. So I can basically make my little database with banks and keys and tell me exactly what patch I'm looking for, what exactly how I want to find it. I usually use the machine and actually the sounds. So when I want to find maybe like a new expansion pack that I added in, I just have my own little guy over here. Kontakt also allows you to import your own sample libraries into the database and apply multiple attributes to categorize them. Kontakt has extensive built-in effects, including an SSL-style EQ, many filter modes, reverbs, delays, and more. That's all available when you open the edit mode. Kontakt patches can be edited using the main plugin page. For the most part, these controls are really just macro controls and don't show every editable parameter via the sound. Some Kontakt plugins have more advanced macro parameters than others, but when you open them up in the edit mode, the ability to customize your patch really expands. So I want to open up the edit mode for the grandeur. It's a little bit of a more simple foundation behind the scenes, so you can wrap your mind around it. If you click the wrench in the Kontakt the edit menu pops up. This page can be set up differently depending on what Kontakt instrument you're using, but in general the principles are the same. The source module is at the beginning of the signal flow in Kontakt and access the source of all audio signals. It provides access to the underlying sample playback engine and can't be removed from an instrument. In the source module section, you can put all of the samples in reverse, edit parameters. I'm just going in here, this is the source module. I can edit the tuning, put a track in reverse, change the high quality standards. Let's see. I can change the sample quality algorithm, add effects to the individual samples, or use a send level tool to add some send effects to each sample. Samples in Kontakt are called groups. So when you go to the group editor, you see that these are all the samples that are built into this patch. And if I'm basically just looking at the source module for one of these groups, I'm literally just looking at the FX applied to one sample. It's called a group. It's a little bit confusing, but it is just one sample. Many patches are built out of multiple samples, and under the Group tab in the Edit menu, you can select which layers, aka groups, you want to adjust, or which selections of groups you would like to edit together. By default, a few groups might be selected on the patches for programming, but you have the option to click Edit All Groups, either up here or over here, in which case you will be controlling corresponding parameters for each sample simultaneously, which is, of course, very helpful for if you wanted to put one effect over every sound or control a parameter for each of the samples in the actual program. From each stage in Kontakt, you can open up the modulator drop-down menu. To add a modulator, let me just go back to the group editor. I'm still editing all groups right now, so I'm looking at the modulator under each one of the little stages here. For example, this example, I'm going to be looking at the amplifier stage in each group's module. The volume and pan functions are the only modulatable parameters in this stage. So basically you can add a modulator, and in this case it's added it's an envelope. You can add an LFO, an envelope, other types of envelopes in here. It's really deep. So I'm just going to scratch the surface here. Basically, I have an envelope, an ADSR, assigned to the volume. Right there, those two are the only modulatable parameters in this lane. So there's an ADSR on the volume for all the groups in this patch. And that's very helpful for if you wanted to control the sounds amplitude envelope, which really can open up the beginning volume of it, the ending volume of it, the sustain level. So you can really add effects onto each one of the sounds, or you can add an effect over all the sounds, all the groups in a patch from this insert effect. You can route an individual's sound output from here to a bus if you wanted to send groups of tracks into a channel strip here. I don't believe that any of the tracks in here are being sent out to anything but the regular output, so all the insert effects here are going to be applying to every sample in this patch. From the insert effects, and truly from any of these stages, you can use what's called a send tool. It's an object, really, that gives you a volume, like a control level for how much of that channel you want to split out and send into one of these send effects channel strips. In this send effects channel strip, I'm basically designating a reverb to blend in underneath it. So each track, the whole group of tracks right there, is going into a reverb, and that's where my send effect is. So it's not directly on the track, it's using a return track down here. The stage below the send effects is the modulation lane, and that's where you can view the selected group's modulators and their respective parameters in the modulation tab. From here you can view modulators' destinations and edit the selected group's modulation parameters. So right now I'm editing all the groups, which means that one of these modulators is basically being put onto every single sound here. They all have that envelope. If you click on each one, you see that they're all a little different. Some of them have more effects, some of them have less effects, but they're all being modulated by an envelope, an ADSR on the volume. So if I'm editing all of them and I'm controlling this right here, let me just bypass the reverb so you can just hear it a little clearer. Every key is playing a different recording, and when I change the modulation for all of them at the same time, I'm changing many different envelopes, but I'm controlling them all with one knob. So in general, that's the breakdown of Kontakt, and it is super powerful, super awesome. When you're just getting started, you're probably not even going to need to leave the macro page, and most of these patches load up with some awesome preset patches already, and the macro knobs are truly useful and available. All right, hope that helped you out a lot, and enjoy your jamming.